All right. So now that you've had some time to think about all of your unfinished and unanswered questions, do you have any questions about anything at all that we've talked about so far? No? Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is, like I said, we want to make this look pretty because it's looking pretty boring. So on page 23, you can see what it's going to look like when we're done. So it's got the blue and different fonts and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing that we want to do is they want us to change our the style of our budget worksheet, personal budget worksheet up here. They want to change this to, they want us to change the cell style. So one of the things that Excel has, and it's fairly new, I believe it was in 2007 is when they came out with the cell styles. And what it does is it allows you to apply style to a cell, similarly to how we can apply style to in Word documents. And so if we go into A1, which is where we have our personal budget worksheet, the style that they want us to apply is I believe it's the heading 1 style is what they want us to do. Let me just double check that that's the case. No, it's the title style. They want A1 to be in the title style. So to do that, the first thing you have to do is you have to be on home. And once you're on home, then in the styles, you want to choose the title style. So we want to click on home and then the title style, and that will then make it look in the title style. And on the Mac, it's the same way. On the Mac, it's on home, it's in styles, and then it is the title style. So it's again in styles, and then title style. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is that we want to change what the font is, because they've decided that they don't want Calibri Light to be to be the style. So we're gonna change. No, we do want that to be Calibri Light. We want monthly estimates rather. They want to change monthly estimates to be the Cambria font. So to do that, what we want to do is we want to click on A2. And in A2, we want to go in the font group and we want to go down to Cambria. And then they want us to make both let's see, they want us to make both A1 and A2 bold. So if I select A1 and A2, I can then click on the bold button, or again, it's Control B, or on a Mac, it's Command B. So that both personal budget worksheet is bold and monthly estimates is bold. A1 and A2, both bold. I'm sorry? I select both A1 and A2. So either I can use the mouse to click and drag, or I could do the keyboard shortcut, which is to hold down my Shift key and use the up arrow. Now, it looks like personal budget worksheet goes all the way to E. It does not. Personal budget worksheet is only in A. It is not in E. It's not in B. It's not in C. It's only in A. And that's why, for example, down here at A14, it looks like it says car payment. And it looks like it says entertainment and miscellaneous. because it's in column A and not in column B, and we have stuff in column B. The only reason that personal budget worksheet is going along here is because we don't have anything in B1. But if I had something in B1, now it looks like it just says perso. But I don't want there to be anything in there, so I'm going to delete that. Now, there's a better way of doing it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But for the moment, this is fine. All right, so we changed, we made it bold. The next thing they want us to do is in A2, they want us to make monthly estimates bigger. So they want this to become size 14. So to make it size 14, you could do several things. You could click on the up arrow on the A button. So right here where it says increase font size, I could click onto that. That would increase the font size. If I've gone too far, I could decrease the font size. I can use the drop-down menu, or I could type it in.
It's good when I want to see which one looks good.
Yeah.
Rather than, because I don't know which one looks good for me.
Yeah, well, I can also use this. I could say, what looks good here? I don't know. This one looks okay, or, you know, whatever. They want it to be 14, so we'll make it 14. Mm-hmm.
So the row 1 personal budget worksheet, is it by default the title, like, however we give, or how is it?
Most people make A1 the title, but it does not have to be. There's no such thing as a rule that that A1 is where you put the title. Mm-hmm. All right. What else do we want to do? All right, they want us to change the font color. So they want us to go into A1 and they want us to change the font color to blue accent 1. Why they want us to do that, I don't know. But blue accent 1 is actually kind of an, you know, it makes it hard to read, but they want it to be blue accent 1, so we'll make it blue accent 1. Whatever.
Word chapter 1, they've given some story which color to choose for what.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's clear that the guys who wrote, you know, this chapter didn't read their own book on, you know, but anyway, that's a different story. Anyway. All right. The next thing they want us to do is they want blue accent 1 to be on A2. So if we go into A2, they also want that to be blue accent 1. I can actually just click on font color and it will also make it then be blue accent 1. All right. So I don't want you to type anything right at the moment, but I want to show you something. So if I want to center personal budget worksheet, to center personal budget worksheet, you might think that you go into A1 and click on to center. But the problem is that it is centered. But again, it's not centered across the page. It's only centered inside of A1. So what we need to do in order to make it centered is the first thing we need to do is we need to tell Excel, you know how we made A1 be this big? I don't want it to be this big. I want it to be this big. So the first thing I need to do is I am going to make the size of A1 encompass A through N. And to do that, I'm going to select from A1 to from A1 to N1. So go ahead and select from A1 to N1. If I'm using the keyboard to do it, I go to A1 and I hold down my shift key and I use the right arrow until it gets to N1. If I'm using the mouse, I can just click and drag it. when you click and drag, make sure that you're using the white plus to click and drag and not the black plus, because the black plus, again, is going to mean that you are doing the fill handle and it'll think that you want to copy personal budget all the way across instead of select all the way across. So now that I've selected all the way across, I want to click on the button that says merge and center. And when I click on the button that says merge and center, what it does is it combines and centers the content of the selected cells into a new larger cell. So when I do that, it's going to now make it so that personal budget worksheet is centered across my table. So it's similar to what we did in Word when we inserted a table and we merged the cells, same type of thing. All right, next thing that they want us to do is they want A3 to N3. And they want A3 to N3 to be in heading 1 format. So to make it be in heading 1 format, again, it's under cell styles. And under cell styles, we want to go to heading 1. And it's okay that it says, you know, September and October and November, because in a moment we're going to resize that so it fits, but right at the moment it's okay with that. That it's not looking right. And then they want us to do the same thing with expenses. So we'll select A8 to N8. And we'll apply the heading 1 style. Yeah, the heading 1 cell style. And then what they want us to do is they want us to alternate the rows of the rest of the data to being either the accent 1 or the accent 1 20%. So they want, first of all, they want the totals to be in the total style. So I'm going to select the totals. So A6 is going, so row 6 basically is going to be in the total style. And row 17 is going to be in the total style. And then 4 is going to be in the 20% accent 1. And 5 is going to be in the 40%. And then rent is going to be in the light. So rent and tuition. And if I hold down my control key, I can select multiple non-consecutive cells. So they want 4, 9, 11, 13, and 15 are going to be 20%, so light. And 5, 10, 12, 14, and 16 are going to be dark, which is 40%. because it's going to go light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So that when you're done, it'll look like this. %, accent 1, and the other one is 20% accent 1. I selected the rows that I wanted, and then I did cell styles, accent 1, what was it, 20%? I think it was 20%. And then the final thing I want to do on this is I want net to be in the cell style of accent 1. So the net data are going to be in cell styles accent 1. For which one? No, net is accent, what's it called? Accent 1? Accent 1. Actual accent 1. Way dark. As opposed to mostly dark, as opposed to light. So that when we're done, it goes light, dark, total, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, total, really dark. All right, next up is that they want us to use the accounting style. So accounting style is this number format right here. In Excel, there are 2 different number formats for money. There is the currency format, and there is the accounting format. And I'm going to show you what the accounting format looks like first. So to do the accounting format, I want to select B4 to N4. Yeah, select B4 to N4. And then in number, I want to click the $sign, which will do the accounting number format. And when I do that, what that does is that formats it so that the $sign is all the way to the left and the numbers are aligned all the way to the right. So I'm going to show you exactly what it's doing by doing this. So I'm going to open up a different window, a different sheet. And I'm going to make my sheet really big, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I am going to format this in the accounting format. So by formatting this in the accounting format, the $sign is all the way over here, and the numbers are all the way over here. This is the accounting format. Maybe I'll make it not quite so much. Maybe it'll be right to there, and then I can blow it up even more. So I'll go like that. So the numbers are over here and the dollar sign is over here. If I put in another set of numbers and I also format that as the dollar, as the as the accounting format, it looks like this. And if I do the same thing and then I make it be, well, that's, that's fine. And then I do like this, it'll be like that. The problem with this is that this looks weird. Having dollar, dollar, dollar looks really weird. So it turns out that there is a format in Excel that uses the exact same format as the accounting format, but without the dollar sign. And the format that uses the format other than the dollar sign is called the comma style, the comma format. So if I select these two and I click onto the comma style, it looks exactly the same as this one does, but without the dollar sign. So what they're going to have us do is they're going to have us make the first row be in the accounting style and this row be in accounting style. And I think the total also being in the accounting style. Do they want the top total or just the bottom total? I think it's just the bottom total. Yeah, I think it's just the bottom total. So the bottom total also in the accounting style. And then everything else is going to be in the, no, they also want total to be in the, total needs to be in the dollars, in the accounting style. So yeah, so they want the first one and the total to be in the accounting style. And then everything else is going to be in the comma style. So this is going to be in the comma style. And this is going to be in the comma style. So that it's just, so it looks like that. And then I think they want net to also be in the accounting style. I click on a comma, which is right here in the comma style. Now you'll notice that right here, my numbers went away and instead it says pound, 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 or hash, 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 or whatever you think the octothorpe is called. Because you didn't blow up your screen as big as mine. So the technical term for the tic-tac-toe symbol is the octothorpe. So if you want to impress your friends, you can say, instead of, hashtag awesomeness, you can totally say octothorpe awesomeness, because, that is super cool.
So when do we use octothorpe?
Never. You would never use octothorpe. Only if you are a super geek like me would you ever actually say octothorpe. But it is technically called the octothorpe. Anyway, the reason that in my case August has a bunch of hashtag symbols is because the width of column I for me is too small for the data that are inside of it. Anytime that you look at your Excel spreadsheet and you see a bunch of hashtag symbols, that means that either you have to change the font size so that it's smaller, so it fits, or you need to change the width so that it fits. I'm going to show you how to change the width in just a second. But that is the reason that it's coming up with hashtag symbols in my case.
But if you hover the mouse over, can we see the number?
Well, if I click it, I can see the number, sure. So if I go in and I click on it and I look in here, it's I16 minus I17. And if I hover, it will tell me what the number is. So if this were exactly what I wanted it to be, I could do one of a couple of things. I could resize it, and now it shows me the size. Or I could go in and I could say, instead of size 11, do size 8, and now it shows up. But I don't want to do either of those because I'm actually going to do something totally different in a little bit. One last thing I want to show you before I show you the next thing, and that is, I told you that there was another way of doing dollars. The other way of doing dollars is to do what is called the currency style. So we have the accounting style, and it says accounting. If I click on the drop-down menu, these are all of the choices that we have for, by default, for number formats. And the format that I am talking about is the currency format. So what's different between the currency format from the accounting format, you ask? Accounting means the dollar sign is all the way to the left and the numbers are all the way to the right. If I do currency, the dollar is right next to the numbers. So depending on what you're doing, sometimes the currency format looks best. Usually when you are listing a whole bunch of numbers, I think the accounting format looks best. But sometimes the currency format is the right choice to make. And I'm pretty sure in your homework, you're doing it in currency format. So you want to make sure you pay attention to where currency is. It's right here, where it says currency. All right, so I'm going to go back to this sheet where we are. So we've done our numbers. The next thing that we want to do is indeed modifying the width. So if you're typing on something, I want you to stop and look up at my screen because this is important stuff. There are several ways of changing the width of a column, or for that matter, the height of a row. One of them is to click in between. So you'll notice that when I put my mouse here, right at the moment, it's got like, I've got the white plus. As I move it closer and closer and closer and up in between A and B, it becomes a arrow, a straight line with a double arrow. If I get the double arrow, that means I can click and drag the width. So if I click here and I drag it to the right, it will make it bigger. If I click and drag it to the left, it will make it smaller. And if I double click, it will auto-fit to fit the width of the largest amount. The other way I could do that is I could select my column. When I select my column, I can go on Home, Format, Cell Size, Auto Fit Column Width. And that will also auto fit it. I can also do Format, Column Width, and specify a specific number. I could say make it 42. I click OK, and it's now going to be size 42. I could have clicked and dragged it to get to 42, which is 300 pixels, or I could, so I could click and drag it to get to 400 pixels, or I can, or 300 pixels, I mean, or I can type it in. I could also right-click and go down to column width and type in a number. To change the height of a row, I do the same thing. If the height of a row, I can put my mouse in between row 1 and 2. It becomes the double arrow going up and down. And now I can click and drag the height and make the height be a particular size. All right, so what they want us to do is they want us to make column A. Yeah, they want us to auto fit column A. So I'm going to auto fit column A. So again, to auto fit column A, I can either select column A and then go on format and go down to auto fit column width, or I could double click in between A and B. Then I want to do the same thing for columns B through N. So I could go in between B and C and double click, between C and D and double click, between D and E and double click, or I could select the entire area that I want to do and choose one of them and double click, and it will autofill, it'll auto fit all of them. Or again, I could use the other choice, which would be to go on Home, Cells, Format, Auto Column Width, and it will also auto fit them. We are auto fitting everything.
They can do the.
So the reason that A is bigger than the rest of them is because A has monthly estimates in it, and monthly estimates takes up more space. So to make it so that monthly estimates doesn't take up more space, what we can do is we can make monthly estimates be just like personal budget worksheet. So how would we make monthly estimates be the same as monthly personal budget worksheet? Merge and center. So I'm going to select from A2 to N2 and merge and center. And now that I've done that, now I can auto fit column A, and it's going to fit. So you need to make sure that you are holding your mouse exactly so that is in between A and B so that you get the double arrow. Or the other way to do it is to select your column and then on format, go down to auto fit.
Okay.
Then it means that you're trying to do it across something that has data in it. All right, I have one last thing I want to show you, and then we're going to save our spreadsheet because we'll be done with the spreadsheet, and we'll then create a little chart. So the one other thing I want to tell you is, again, this name box. So the name box, right now I'm in D22. If I wanted to make it go to, say, N3, I could type in the name box N3 and press enter, and it would take me to N3. Now that's, all right, big whoop. Here's where the name box is totally awesome. You can select a range or select a cell, type in your own name, and then that will become the cell or the range's name. And then you can just type in that or click on the drop-down menu and jump straight to that. Why is that nifty? Let me show you. Let's say I am always updating this spreadsheet, and I want to print only the totals for whatever reason. So to do that, one of the things you can do in Excel is that if I do a file print, by default, it'll print everything. But if I click on the drop-down menu, I can say only print the selection. So since I've currently selected total, I can make it so that it would only print the total. Now, I don't want to print, so don't actually print, but I might want to do that, right? So I might want to make it so that all of the totals would automatically be printable pretty easy. So to do that, I would have to select all of the totals. And now that I've selected all the totals, I could click on a print and it would just show me the totals. Everybody with me so far? Yeah. So I could highlight it and then do that. But then that means the next time I want to do it, I'd have to highlight it and then do it again. There's a better way of doing it. And the better way is that I highlight it, and then I go over to the name box, and in the name box, I type in some phrase that I am going to remember, or that I guess I'm not going to remember, and I'll click on the drop-down menu. But something that's meaningful. So I don't know, total seems like a reasonable name. So I will type in TOTAL and press enter. And now that I've done that, no matter where I'm at, if I click on the drop-down menu, it says total. I click on a total, and it's already selected then the total. The other time I think this is really, really, really useful is that the name box works across multiple sheets. When you establish a name, you are establishing it not only in this workbook, but on this specific worksheet. So what that means is, suppose my workbook has January and February and March and April and May and June and July and August and September and October and November and December. And I want to easily skip to the total on December. Well, I could go to sheet 12, select column N in sheet 12, and in the name box, give it a name, call it DEC total or total -12 or I don't know, something like that. So I'll mimic that because I happen to have multiple sheets. So I'll go to this sheet and I will select A3 and I will call this the Yippee. And now if I go back to sheet 1 and I'm in A whatever, and I click on the drop-down menu and I click on a Yippee, it takes me to Yippee. And then if I want to go to total, I go to total. So if you have a big spreadsheet and you always are jumping to a specific spot in said spreadsheet, because you always have to update this one thingy, name that thingy. And you need to, in your details, you have to tell it so that you don't want to print the whole thing. So it's right here where it says print set. So, anyway. All right. So that's the stuff that I wanted to tell you about the spreadsheet part of this. The other thing is that you'll notice that now that I've done file print, that it's put in these guidelines. These guidelines tell you what the print area is going to be. If you want to, you can set the print area to be what you want the print area to be. So if I select this area, I could actually go in and I could tell it that I want this area to be my print area. And there are several ways of doing that. I generally will do it by going into print, and then I can say that I want to change what my orientation is. So in this case, I would change it to landscape, and then I can tell it to change my scaling to fit in one page, and then it'll fit it all in one page. And if I do that and I go back to my view, it's now changed and no longer has the bars around it. Another way to get those bars is on page layout. There is print area, set print area. So I could go in and select this area, print area, set print area, and now it will set that area as the print area. Different ways that you could go about doing it. It's not very important for what we're doing right now, but it's something that I wanted to point out to you. All right. The last thing that we need to do on our spreadsheet is we need to put in a chart. So we are going to put in a chart. So I'm going to turn on one of my lights because it's starting to get dark. And all right. So on our, to create a pie chart, the first thing that you have to do is you have to have your data. So we've got our data. And now what we need to do is we need to tell Excel what are the data pieces that we want to encompass the chart. And basically what a chart does is a chart graphically represents the data. In Excel, you can also do what's called a pivot. And what a pivot is a pivot is a numeric representation of your data. So a pivot and a chart are actually the same thing. A pivot is a numeric representation of your data, and a chart is a graphical representation of your data. And you can convert a chart into a pivot, and you can convert a pivot into a chart. And in fact, one of the things that people often refer to those as they call them a pivot chart, because that's what they are. Anyway, charts and pivots are basically the same thing. But what we want to do is we want to create a chart. So in Excel, we're on page 38. What they want us to do is they want us to select the column, I mean, not the column, the names in expenses. So they want us to select from A9 to A16. And then they want us to also select from N9 to N16. Now, if I were to select the whole thing by like using my shift key or whatever, it's going to select everything, but we don't want it to select everything. We only want it to select the rent to miscellaneous and the total. So to do that, I hold down my control key instead of my shift key. So I hold down my control key, and on the Mac, I believe it is the option key. So I do, is it a command? Yeah, it's command, the command key. So I hold down my command key if I'm on a Mac. So I select A9 to A16. I hold down my control or my command key, and I select from N9 to N16. So that I've selected the expenses and the totals. Once I do that, I go on Insert, and I go to Charts. And I'm going to go to the pie chart, and I'm going to pick the 3D pie chart because the 3D pie chart is way cool looking. So I'm going to pick the 3D pie chart. I now have the 3D pie chart. And as meaningful as the name chart title is, it actually is not very meaningful. So I'm going to change the chart title from saying chart title to saying monthly expenses. To do that, I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to say monthly expenses. And then I'm going to click to the side so that it's no longer selected. And when I click onto the side, so it's no longer selected, it's kind of hard to see because there's some data over here. But there's this plus sign, there's this brush, and there's this filter icon. And what I want to do is I want to click on the brush. And when I click onto the brush, depending on where it is, it'll either show up on the left or the right-hand side. It's usually on the same side that it's at, but because I've moved my chart, it's bouncing over on the left side. And the chart style they want us to do is this one. So I'm going to click on the brush, and I'm going to click on to this style. On the Mac, it is done by, it's done almost in the same way. It is done by saying, so I select my data, and then I do insert, and then I do the 3D pie chart. And then up in the chart design is where you can change the design. So you can also do it by just going up here and changing the design there. All right, the next thing that I want to do is that I want to move this to a separate sheet. So to move this to the separate sheet, I'm going to click this button up here that says Move Chart. And when it says Move Chart, it says, where do I want to move it to? Do I want to move it into a new object or move it into a new sheet? And I want to say move it into a new sheet, and I click OK. And now my chart has been moved to this sheet. And it's called Chart 1. And I still have Sheet 1 and Chart 1. So I have one last thing that I want to do. The last thing that I want to do is I want to change what the chart said, or what the sheet names are. So right now it says Chart 1 and it says Sheet 1. So the sheet is our budget, right? So I am going to rename this. And to rename a sheet, you double click. And when you double click, you can type in a new name. So I'm going to call this the monthly budget planner. monthly budget planner. I usually name my data, I usually name it something like data. And then I usually name my chart, like if it's a pie chart, I'll name it, pie chart. And if it's a bar chart, I'll name it bar chart. And if it's a column chart, I'll name it column chart. I'm very creative in my naming schemes. But you can name it whatever you want. But in the book wants it to be called monthly budget planner. And they want us to name the chart the monthly expenses. I think it should be monthly expenses chart. So I'm going to call it the monthly expenses pie chart because it's a pie chart. And the other thing that I usually will do is I usually like to have the data be in the first sheet. So I'm going to move my budget planner in front of the pie chart. And to do that, I'm just going to click and drag it. And you'll notice when I click and drag it, this little plus, this little black arrow appears. And that allows me to move it. And then the final thing they want us to do is to change the color. So if I right click onto my chart, I can go to tab color and I can pick a different color. So the colors that they're picking are green, I think. No, orange. They want orange. I don't know. You can pick whatever color you want. So I'll pick yellow. And I'll pick this one. I'll make it, I don't know, what goes good with yellow? Red? Okay, I'll make it red. So now I've got the red monthly expenses pie chart and the yellow monthly budget planner. And when I'm done, I'm going to hit File Save. And I have now totally finished with my part one. And so if you're all done, you can go ahead and publish this. However, I have one last thing I want to show you about this. And I think it's incredibly important right now as we are starting to go into the election season again. And that is never, ever, ever trust a chart. So if you're doing something else, I want you to stop and look up at my screen because I'm going to show you what you should never, ever, 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 ever do. Never do what I'm about to do, okay? So this looks like this says that rent takes up 27% of our budget and that tuition takes up 17 and that what's blue? Gas takes up 7%. And this one is entertainment and it takes up 7% and books takes up 5%. Well, what if I wanted to make it look like this takes only 5% and this takes up 27%. Here's how I would do that. Now, don't do this. This is not a correct and moral thing, but I can do that. Drag it over. I can do this. Drag it over. And unless you were paying attention, you might think that this is actually 27% and that this is actually 5%. That is how hard it is to fake a chart. And one of the problems is that one of the reasons that humans like charts is that we don't, we tend to take our information and synthesize it into pictures. And so we tend to take our numbers and make it into a picture into our brain. That's how we normally categorize stuff, is that we tend to be very visual people. People tend to be visual, is what I meant. animals, I guess is the right word. We tend to be a very visual, we understand the world visually. And so because of that, we tend to be more susceptible to what a picture says as opposed to what the words say. And what I will tell you is never ever trust a chart. Always demand to see the data that backs up the chart, because it is that hard to fake it. Not hard at all. All I had to do is click and drag. And what if this weren't a pie chart? What if this were a different style chart? Well, I could go in and, you know, go into the into my chart styles. Where is it? Or even better, I'll just create a new one. So if I go into here and I reselect my data, so I select this and I select this and I insert a chart and I do say a clustered column chart, and I move my clustered column chart to a new sheet so it's easier to see the whole data and stuff. Again, it looks like rent takes up the most. Well, all I need to do if I don't want rent to take up the most is I can just move my picture that is currently on rent over to entertainment, and move entertainment over to rent, and boom, I've now made it so that rent is the least expensive thingy. The point is, don't trust, you know, a chart on its face. Always demand to look at the data that are backing up whatever the chart is alleging. Always see both. Always demand to look at both. So if you are reading a newspaper, you know, thing, and it says that, you know, 53%, you know, it shows a chart indicating that 53% of whatever said whatever. Well, that's great, but show me the data. Because 53% out of 100 people means 53 people. 53% out of 10 million people is, you know, a lot more, 530,000 or whatever. So it you know, both are 53%, and both would show up as a pie chart indicating that, you know, a big chunk of the people are doing that. But I need to see what the data are in order to really make an informed decision on whatever it is. And it's really easy to fake it. So that's my warning. That said, it's super fun, you know, and stuff. So, any questions about the stuff that we've done tonight?
Getting these three. Can you go back to where how you highlighted the expenses?
Yeah, so when I go back to my planner here and I've selected these two, I selected first this one, and then I hold down my control key. And while I'm holding down my control key, I select this one. That allows me to select multiple areas. All right, we've come to the end of the stuff that I wanted to talk about today. What we will talk about next time is, next time we'll talk more about Excel. We'll talk about formulas, which are, you know, more in depth on formulas. Today we just did some, but we will talk about, you know, some of my all-time favorite formulas next time. In fact, I think if I remember right, I want to tell you all about my some of my all-time favorite things to do in Excel. So we will talk about that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we will. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about dates. So so we'll talk about, you know, some of my all-time favorite things in Excel when we next meet next week. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Title.